Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today, inshallah, we'll be talking about a special type of pain called neuropathic pain. And in this lecture, we'll start by defining the word pain, describing different types of pain, and we'll talk specifically in more details about neuropathic pain presented as episodic or continuous neuropathic pain. So starting with the first part of the lecture, definitions and types of pain. So what's the definition of pain? The International Association for Study of Pain described or defined the word pain as unpleasant, sensory, and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage. So what does that mean? So the pain could be sensory, so there could be a challenge to the nervous system, or let's say the peripheral nerves, and it could be also emotional. So the cognitive part, or let's say that the pain has two parts, the sensory neural part, which is defined as the stimulus that irritate or stimulate the peripheral nerve endings, and it has a cognitive part which forms the emotional part of the pain, and both of them are actually essential for the patient. So even if the patient does not have physical evidence of pain, but he is actually feeling that pain, so this is sort of the emotional type or emotional experience of the pain, and it is unpleasant, so we define it as pain. So this is a very important point. Another thing is this experience of pain is associated with actual or potential tissue damage. Actual tissue damage is the tissue damage that you can see. You can see a cut, you can see a trauma, you can see a site of a tooth extraction. So there is an actual evidence that explains the pain sensation. However, some patients do not have that physical evidence. So you as a clinician or as an examiner, you cannot see any changes in the tissues, but still the patient insists that he feels pain. So there is a potential tissue damage that the clinician would not recognize, and this potential tissue damage could be related to microstructural changes related to the nervous system or the nerves that supply that tissues, which you as a clinician cannot see and detect. And this sensory and emotional experience of pain the patient would suffer from would lead to something known as pain behavior. And this is very important to appreciate. We as a dentist, we usually deal with acute pain, and specific type of pain we call it nociceptive, as I will describe later in the coming slides. So in acute pain, usually it is reactive and usually you can appreciate and deal with, but there is sort of a chronic forms of pain. And in the chronic form of pain, there's actual changes in the brain, sort of a rewiring of the neuronal connections within the brain that leads to this pain behavior that you need to be aware of when you are dealing with your patients. So this is what we will be describing in the coming few slides, describing the pain experienced by patients, a specific type of pain, which is neuropathic pain. In all cases, pain is detected and interpreted by the nervous system. So we have a peripheral component and a central component, and in the coming slides we will start to tell the difference between the central and peripheral component of the pain. So let's start talking about the types of pain. We have the pain can be divided based on the origin of pain to nociceptive pain and neuropathic pain. And based on the duration, if the pain lasts for a long time, it is chronic pain. If for a short time, it is acute pain. We as dentists usually deal with acute nociceptive pain, and in this lecture we will talk about different types of pain that are located or originated within the nervous system, either peripheral or central. So we will be talking about neuropathic pain. Let's talk about the nociceptive pain, or it is called as a normal pain, which means that this is a normal response to tissue injury, and it aims to protect the individual. So this is why we call it normal pain. So the nociceptive pain, nociceptive mean it is related to a nociceptor or nociception stimulus. So there is sort of trauma, there is sort of damage, actual tissue damage that stimulates the peripheral nerve endings, and which is, you know, what we have in a dental pain. There is actual damage. There is either tooth extraction, there is periapical infection, there is pulpitis. So there is a threat or damage or abnormality that occurs in the peripheral area that is detected by the nerve endings, giving you a stimulus to warn you that there is something wrong going there and you need to take action. So how does nociceptive pain takes place? So this is the site, this is the first step, which is the peripheral nerve endings detect the damage in terms of inflammation or trauma or cut. So these nociceptors, we have a nociceptors, which are specific receptors located in the C fibers, and they are responsible for converting the stimulus, either mechanical stimulus, thermal stimulus, chemical stimulus. It will transduce it or convert it into electrical impulse. So this is the first step, which is detecting the chemical, mechanical, or thermal stimulus and converting it into electrical stimulus. The second step is transmission. So once these nociceptors here detected or converted the stimulus, the chemical or irritation, converted it into electrical stimulus, the second step is transmission. Hang on a second. Yeah. The second step is transmission, where this electrical impulse is transmitted through the nerves into the ganglion. And once it gets to the ganglion, of course, here we are talking about the fifth cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, which is our area of interest. So here it goes to the trigeminal ganglion and it goes into the central nervous system. This is the pons, where which is part of the brainstem, where the trigeminal nerve goes into, and from here the stimulus is transmitted to the ascending nerves going up, or tracks going up to the brain. And in the third step here, there's ascending modulation, which means that this electrical impulse, it can get modulated or changed based on your condition. So it can be exaggerated if you are like tired, stressed out, challenged. So this can be exaggerated, or it can be reduced and inhibited. If you are happy, you're not paying attention, you're busy, so even if you have a cut, even if there's a transduction, there's a transmission, it goes to the pons in the brain, but still you do not feel anything because there is sort of inhibition from the brain caused by your general status, by your being busy or being not aware of that injury. You will perceive. So the fourth part is pain perception, which means that you will perceive the idea that you are having pain. You will recognize that you are having pain only if the pain stimulus reached to the cortex. Before that, it is just within your nervous system, but you as a person would not perceive the fact that you are having pain. A very common example is when you touch something hot, and when you touch it and you just remove your finger, even before the signal reaches to the cortex and recognize that you've touched a hot stimulus, it just got from this part here feeling something hot and get to the pons, and then you got a motor reflex And in this case, you would do the action, do the response even before perceiving the idea that you burned your finger. So the feeling of pain, the appreciation of pain would happen only if this stimulus reached to the cortex. Once it gets to the cortex, this pain, there should be a reaction to your sensation, to your pain feelings. So there's a sort of nociceptive descending modulation. So the brain, the nervous system would react to this excessive pain stimulus, and it usually responds by sending inhibition signals. And one of the clearest examples of nociceptive descending modulation effect is that when we have in our body, we have lots of sphincters, our heart contracts, the blood vessels dilate and constrict, but we do not feel actually all of these actions taking place. We do not feel the sphincter, we do not feel any of these sensations, because they are all inhibited by the descending modulation. So we have sort of a balancing effect of the pain. So we do not perceive all of our pain stimulus. Not all of the pain stimulation gets to the cortex, so we do not perceive it. And the second thing is our brain take action by sending inhibitory signals to suppress the pain. If the pain stimulus persisted for very long duration, like in a patient having a chronic pain problem, this would lead to changes or rewiring in the brain, and would form something known as a pain behavior. And this explains the attitude, let's say, or the behavior of many elderly patients who has been exposed to long duration of chronic pain, rheumatic pain, or sensory pain. So their personality actually become different because of chronic pain. We call this pain behavior. And this is actually not just reflecting the patient's own personality, it reflects the rewiring and changes that has happened in the brain as a response to the chronic stimulation and chronic pain signals. And autonomic reactions, so with the prolonged time, even the autonomic, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, would be involved in the process of pain. So all of these 6 steps represents the normal nociceptive pain. This is how pain takes place. Nociception by transducing the nociceptive signals into an electrical signal, transmission of the electrical signal, and then ascending modulation going up through the ascending tracts to the thalamus. And here in the thalamus where the descending modulation takes place, pain is perceived by the patient only if it reaches to the cortex. So sometimes it is inhibited here at the thalamus level, so you do not feel the pain and you do not perceive the fact that you are having pain, and you only perceive and know that you are having pain only if the pain stimulus reaches to the cortex. If it lasts for long duration, this would lead to rewiring in the brain and developing sort of a brain behavior, sort of a pain behavior, and the autonomic nervous system might be involved in this process as well. This is an example of the process of transduction, where the injury takes place here, and releasing lots of inflammatory cytokines because of that injury. Now, this inflammatory cytokines forms a chemical sort of irritation, and they will be detected by the nociceptors located in the peripheral nerve endings of the C fibers, and the process of transduction takes place here, where the chemical stimulus here is converted into electrical stimulus. The second step is transmission, where this electrical stimulus is transmitted through the nerve endings. So this is how things takes place in nociceptive pain. In neuropathic pain, it's completely different story. Neuropathic pain, it is defined as pain arising as a direct consequence of lesion or disease that affect the somatosensory system. So we are talking about the nervous system, and either peripheral or central nervous system, and there must be sort of a lesion or a damage or a disease that affect the process of pain sensation within those nerves. So for example, if there is a cut in the nerve, this would initiate an action potential and transmission of electric impulse inducing pain. This is an example of one type of neuropathic pain, and as you can see here, the signal is transmitted and goes to the upper higher levels to the central nervous system. Neuropathic pain mechanisms. So there are two mechanisms, either peripheral or central. Peripheral means that the problem or the abnormality occurs within the peripheral nervous system, which is the nerves. The central nervous system includes the spinal cord and the brain. So any abnormality, disease, or lesion affecting the brain or the central or the spinal cord is called central neuropathic pain. The peripheral nerves could be affected by different types of damages. It could be, just an injury or cut of that nerve. It could be an inflammation of that nerve, or that nerve might be just compressed, and because of the chronic compression of the nerve, it will lose the myelin sheath that covers or wraps the nerves. So these are examples of peripheral neuropathic pain causes. In the central neuropathic pain, the pain might be produced by cerebrovascular lesions within the brain, like hemorrhagic accident or maybe thrombotic event within the brain that will lead to a damage, localized damage into the brain. So this might lead to pain sensation. Tumors that are present within the brain. So the brain itself does not have nerve endings. It's not sensitive. However, when there is a damage, or when there is a tumor that is compressing on that nerve, it will affect the blood vessels surrounding the brain, and it will induce pain. So usually tumors in the infratentorial area, which is the lower part of the brain, usually it induces pain when it grows to a large extent. Multiple sclerosis, which is an autoimmune disease inducing myelination or demyelination of the central nervous system, also would induce pain. We, in this lecture, will be talking about the peripheral neuropathic pain, and we are not going to talk about the central neuropathic pain more than what I did just previously. And but it is important to keep in mind that if you fail to find any source of nociceptive pain, if you fail to find any reason for the peripheral neuropathic pain, just remember that it could be a central neuropathic pain. The patient might having any of these problems, and this is an indication to refer the patient to a neurologist. So this is my introduction to the topic, and in the second part we'll start talking about the peripheral neuropathic pain. See you then. Bye-bye.